Adolf Hitler said in Mein Kampf that the politicians are caterpillars.
Counter-protester who was carrying a flag attached to a golf club.
Why have reform gained so much traction?
My son is black, my daughter is black. And I said to my son, just be aware now, just be wary, make sure that you keep your eyes open, because there are people now who aren't kind.
This is an area where people in the past have gone to fight against fascism.
They're stirring up a hatred in an area that never saw that kind of hatred before.
Immigration has become a bit of a flashpoint in this by-election. That's despite the fact that the Senate don't have control over immigration policy. That's kept in Westminster. And the fact that only about 3% of Caerphilly's population was born outside of the UK, according to the last census data. But we're just approaching a counter-protest, which is pro-immigration. And that's to counter the demonstration planned later today, which is anti this plan for sanctuary that the Welsh Labour government has brought in, which would provide a framework to help refugees get into housing and find jobs. What's brought you to this protest today?
My parents were both immigrants to this country originally, and they were hardworking and they loved everybody. And the way the immigrants are being treated and the racism that's trying to divide Caerphilly now through reform is horrendous. We had all this back in the 60s, and we fought very hard to overcome the racism. And I thought we were making progress. And once again, we're here all this time later trying to fight for people's rights just to exist. And it's not right. It's not right. We should be a united community who want to stir up racial hatred again. And Caerphilly's always been a welcoming place. This is why we moved here. It's an amazing place to live, and people are so welcoming. But the atmosphere since reform has moved in has changed completely.
Why have reform gained so much traction? I'm afraid a lot of it is to do with the media. The media give reform an unduly large platform. They share their rhetoric and they share their hate. Migration into Caerphilly, when we look around us and we look at how it affects local services, it really isn't an issue. But the perception of it is an issue, and that's why it's come up in this election.
Parties like Reform will tell you that, access to housing, access to vital council services, it's a competition between asylum seekers and between, British people. And I'm here to completely oppose that.
Well, the purpose is to show the people of Caerphilly that we want to welcome people from wherever they are, because getting people from abroad enriches the culture locally. And, the Welsh culture is strong, but it'd be even better if you have other cultures coming in. So it's important to say we're a welcoming part of the world and not one that's dedicated to racism, which is what Reform are doing. They're stirring up a hatred in an area that never saw that kind of hatred before.
Well, I'm just so disappointed and scared that areas like Caerphilly, who has always cared about working people, are considering voting reform. This is an area where people in the past have gone to fight against fascism in the Spanish Civil War. So it's a huge concern.
This protest right now is a counter-demonstration to one planned later today, which is against the Welsh Labour government's plan for a nation of sanctuary. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it's really important that we have a nation of sanctuary, because we're welcoming people here, a big Welsh croeso for people here who are seeking asylum or who are migrants. They deserve to be treated properly. A lot of the reason for migration have been actually undertaken by us as the UK in terms of some of the wars that have happened abroad, and also global warming that's causing countries to overheat and people having to migrate. So what we want to do is treat them with respect and make sure there's a welcome for them. But also, I don't think many people know, but 88% of the Nation of Sanctuary money has gone to Ukrainian refugees. So again, I think we're very proud of that, and we should be. And Welsh Government has had its own policies in terms of when we welcome migrants, making sure if we've got doctors coming over as migrants that we can help them in terms of being able to work in our NHS.
No, I was meeting someone only brought into it. I didn't realise this was on, to be
Yeah.
honest. And it's come past and then just listening to what people have to say, It's a legal immigration has absolutely, has helped this country. I got friends that are immigrants, legal immigrants. Anyway, what I'm talking about is when the illegal immigrant side of things, which obviously isn't a massive issue here in Caerphilly. The figures talk for themselves. It's a low number, low percentage. What I would say with the nation of sanctuary, I think it's become so big now, politicised in the name of it and the controversy surrounding it. I just think a new approach to helping asylum seekers, and generally mean that asylum seekers would go down better as the public, because we can see the divisiveness at the minute, and it takes away from real issues. As I said, I am absolutely
totally agree with that. I think we were just chatting, weren't we? Is the fact that just to put a very black and white, to use the words, label on something is to explain so people understand. Because I got to think this gathering has done themselves any good, and I've come here to support this because the optics of it and the audible sort of messages you get in is not one of, well, help me understand.
We came over to us. We don't know over to him.
So that was an alleged counter-protester who was carrying a flag attached to a golf club, and the police have told him he can't be carrying a golf club around at this protest.
Well, and unfortunately, it's the right wing at the moment, isn't it? It's people like Tommy Robinson, it's people like Nigel Farage. They have far too much airtime. It's absolutely appalling. The problem is the cost of living crisis. The biggest problem is inequality. We have billionaires, and at the same time, we have food banks, and they've changed the narrative. They've grabbed the narrative, and it's appalling that the media have allowed them to do that. Caerphilly has the lowest number of ethnic minorities in the whole of Wales at 2.9%. But that's their main argument. And also people are really sort of concerned about the cost of living crisis. So like any sort of fascist organisation, what's happening is rather than blaming the inequality and the billionaires, they're blaming people on benefits. They're blaming migrants. Disabled people at the moment are going through a really difficult time because there's a lot of anti-disability because of the whole rhetoric around benefits. So it's very, very scary times, I think.
Why have Labour seem to have lost so much traction in Wales?
Well, because they've completely failed to do anything that real people really need them to do. Councils are falling deeper into debt. Just the NHS is continuing to crumble and continuing to fail. Labour have gotten in and they've pretty much immediately behaved exactly the way the Tories would.
Do you feel slightly let down by the Labour government?
Yes, I don't think any of them at the moment have it right. I think they all need to work on their policies. And I honestly believe that we have to look at immigration. We have to get it right. We have to help the people who are truly in need. But we're an island. We can't take every single person. We understand that. But there is a way to do it. And there is a way to be. And Labour, there's so much work Labour needs to do, and I will vote Labour because I know at the heart of Labour, they do want what's right for the people. Are they perfect? No. Do they need a lot of work? Absolutely. But I do believe that they will get there. But if we vote now and we let the reform in, we look at America, look what is happening. And this is going to be us. And we can't moan and say we didn't know because we did.
Why do you think reform are polling so well in Caerphilly right now?
Money. If you actually look at it, they've actually spent an awful lot of money persuading people that they're the new radical party. They're supported by billionaires and millionaires. And, for every other political party here, they've actually issued about 5 times more literature than anybody else because they can afford to do it. it's buying votes.
Why do you think the Labour Party are polling so poorly?
Well, they've had 25 years in the Welsh Assembly of trying to do things, and people don't feel any better off. Nationally, the Labour Party are to the right of where Edward Heath, the Conservative, used to be. So, as they've gone to the right, there's a big gap, and I think that's why people that used to traditionally vote for them are looking elsewhere.
I think people are fed up with Labour promises and failure to deliver. We have had Labour in power for 25 years. We have a health service with the longest waiting list in the UK. We have an education system with low PISA rates, low rates of young people going to university. And yeah, people are they are a little bit fed up of hearing that we'll deliver this and then not delivering.
Just film them. The man holding the St. David's flag just charged towards the Stand Up to Racism protesters when they told him he didn't understand what the St. David's flag meant. He was quite quickly pulled back by the police. So tell us about your flag.
That's the St. David's Cross. It's the Christian flag of Wales. Where the St. George's is for England, and the St. Patrick's is for Ireland, and St. Andrew's for Scotland.
And then I saw earlier the protesters over there, they said that you didn't understand what the St. David's flag meant. What do you make of that?
They didn't understand.
They said that you didn't understand.
Oh, well, I explained to them I understand that they were communists and atheism. Yeah. So it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a by-election here happening soon. Reform are set to win. What do you make of that?
Yeah, Reform are good in that they'll destroy the Tory party, but they're not the full answer because they're not ethnic nationalists. They're civic nationalists. I mean, they've got Indians in the party. I believe the deputy leader is an Indian. In actual fact, see, all non-white immigration in this country is illegal. They're all illegal because of the British people. Democracy is supposed to represent the people, and people have voted successively in elections to stop immigration, and the politicians don't listen to them. Adolf Hitler said in Mein Kampf that the politicians are caterpillars, and at election time they come out and turn into butterflies, and after the election they turn back into caterpillars. So that's exactly what's happening in our system.